All right, and welcome again. And this is part two of looking at the octatonic scale as well as the whole tone, only this time we're going to look at it what I call horizontally, across in one position. So just to review and to get your bearings, which should be solid with the vertical one-string approach, this is a symmetrical scale. It's a whole step always followed by a half step or vice versa. There are only three of them exist. So when you begin to transpose them, they run out after two transpositions. So for example, if I look at the one from A flat G sharp, and I start with a whole step up, then we have these pitches, which we talked about last time, reviewing it as and if you want to add the ninth note, you have the octave. So let's limit ourselves to just talking about that particular transposition of the scale. So it's essentially a G sharp diminished scale, which is the same as a B diminished, which is the same as a D, and the same as an F. So when we look at how to play this horizontally, I think there's one other thing I do want to say before we go to the horizontal. When we look at the scale fingering as a three-note form, still going vertically, now we have to notice how the three-note patterns manifest themselves. That's very important. So the first group is a whole half. Then there's a whole step shift, and then we have a half whole, then a half step shift, and a whole half. So that would be the rhythm of it in 9/8. And you would want to practice that. And I put a little note in the card about how this might relate to the double bass. Well, it's perfectly doable on the double bass. You would play 1, 2, 4 with an extension, a reach, a bit of a quick shift. You're basically feeling chunk, 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 chunk. Okay, so we got that out of the way. So now we're here, and so we look at those same patterns. Actually, I'm an octave lower right at the moment. So then it's a whole step, and the next pattern is half whole, and then it's a half step shift and whole half. So the effect of this is that you have two three-note patterns in one position and two three-note patterns in another position, and it's got a nice rhythm. It's actually 12/8, so you would have slowly. Double bass fingerings, semandal fingerings. So that's the general idea. And so that's from G sharp. You could have the same thing from F. You have open strings now. You could have it from B. You could have it from D. But what of the other four positions, the ones in between? So for example, what of, let's go A sharp. What of A sharp? Well, now the pattern is starting as a one whole step, half step, whole step pattern. Huh? So whenever you finish that, the next pattern is going to be whole half, but you also have a half step shift. So that means you have to go to the next position. And again. So in this position of it, so this is 6th fret, 1, 2, 4. Now I have to go to 5th fret, 1, 3, 4. Stay at 5th fret, 1, 2, 4, and then 4th fret. So what I did there was I extended so I didn't have to. Basically, I'm at 5th fret. Once I get down here now, 5th. So I could do a reach, but basically, you have to go there to get that note. So that's it in a nutshell. When you see that there are just two different ways of doing it, it's either 2 strings and then 2 strings, or it's 2 strings in the middle and 1 on top. Then you're able to play all of the different regions for the scale, playing it across, which obviously is going to be really helpful. So going down, next one, same as the very first one, shift, shift. Next one is the opposite. Let's look at that one. I'm using Simandl fingerings now. So 1, 1, 4. Then I shift and I go 1, 2, 4. Then I go 1, 1, 4. And then I go basically to half position or 1st fret. So that's the general idea. That's how you begin to work diminished scales across, octatonic scales across in position. You really can't do it without shifting. On guitar you can, because you can have a whole step between 1 and 2 and 1 and 4, but that's really not practical on electric bass, I don't think. So now with whole tone scales, it's essentially the same general principle, only I think it's a little easier because it's all whole steps, obviously. So to remind ourselves, the natural way to do this would be 1 whole step short of an octave, that is a minor 7th. So I'm doing a whole tone scale from A flat or G sharp. Now the other idea would be to do 3 notes in position. This is a little hairy for double bass, but we could say it's the same notes. I would only do that after everything else is feeling really solid. But it might be interesting to have as an option when we play across. Now let's try doing just that. So if I start here at the same note, and now I just work my way up. It's all whole steps. So I could work that way and just. But to sort of keep in the same area and not just keep climbing up all the way, you can have some of the positions have 3 notes and some of them have 2. So looking at that as with 4 fingers, and then at this point I would probably something like that, maybe like that. It's just the idea that you can get most of the notes without moving if you're in 4 fingers. So it's just that this is A flat, B flat, C, D. Now I could reach up and get that E, and then stay here for the F sharp and the G sharp, and then. So that's rather convenient at times, as opposed to just being locked into moving, which could be good there. So that's a good form. Basically, that's the same thing with Simandl. So what we're doing now is, here I'm going to get 3 notes. So you got 2 notes here, 2 notes here, 3 notes here, and 2 here. Basically going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's kind of a 2, 3. bit different. If you accent it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Getting pretty open, so. Oops. So it's a little loose around the edges, but that shows you how you could open up these whole tone scales as well as the octatonic scales going across. So practice them just straight up and down, and then you can start taking a look at how you could do patterns or intervals in those areas, and obviously just improvise. Just do some creative playing but lock yourself into only playing those scales. So say to yourself, I'm going to be in the whole tone scale. And the same thing with. So that's it for now. I hope that helps. Kind of complicated here. Rewind the tape and check and see. But basically everything I was doing, except at the end there, was a different key. But it was all that one key for the 8-note scale, and similarly for the whole tone scale. So the moral of the story, the bottom line, the takeaway is that you need to get scales together, both going up and down one string, and you need to get them together going across. And the other takeaway from it, I highly recommend using this as a supplement. It kind of, boy, when you go back to the upright, it's different, of course, and it just kind of maybe you can look at it in a little different way. You don't have that feeling of the neck, thumb position, and all of that other stuff, and you'll begin to see it more just as a continuum from the lowest note to the highest. So that's it for now. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time.